Hey everybody, I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to As Above, So Below, a rune and tarot divination for Thursday, the 13th day of June, 2024. Well, I've done this once, and I got to the end of the video, and the video started jumping. So I'm not going to redo the reading. I'm just going to go through what I have here and talk about it. My head's there, and it's going to be too difficult just to start all over clean when I've already gone through the whole thing. Uh, we have an interesting comparison here, or not really comparison, but I don't know where that went, but I don't need to look at it actually. On Monday's reading, I drew for the runes, the significator runes, I drew Tiwaz and Rubius. But I've done the same thing here today, only I did not draw Rubius, thankfully. I drew Caput Draconis. So Tiwaz is the spiritual warrior within. It represents the god Tyr, and standing up, speaking truth to power, justice, oaths, ideals, and all of that. It can also have to do with legal matters. But on Monday, whereas we were dealing with Rubius energy, which is very evil, it's very ego-based. When it's in its extreme form, it would be the con man or the sociopath, and I think I referenced it was kind of a political reference, to what's going on in the world and in the country right now specifically. But it was essentially, you could really draw it down to a battle between either dark and light or good and evil or whatever, however you want to see it. But today, if there's a connection to Monday's reading, it has to do with Tiwaz, of course, and the activist within. Tiwaz is a very activist-oriented rune. Anytime you speak truth to power, generally speaking, you're not just doing it for yourself. You're doing it in a way that benefits others, and maybe it's intentional. You're a leader in a activist type group, and that has to do with civil rights or something like that, for example. We have a lot of weird rulings coming out of the court, especially with Roe v. Wade and a woman's right to choose, and whether or not she can, if say there's a complication with a pregnancy, can a doctor in some of these other states that have already enacted these draconian laws that it's even coming down to if the fetus is gone and has died, and now you need to get it out of there because that's something dead within you that needs to come out, or it can cause great harm or death to the woman, to the mom. They're saying, oh no, you can't do that. It's like, what? And doctors are afraid to perform that kind of medical care for women now in those states. And so next, I guess they're heading toward saying abortion, or not abortion, but birth control. You can't have birth control, and no IVF, all that stuff. It's like, why are you attacking women, right? So there would have been an example with Tiwaz and Rubius, where you're really dealing with Rubius as either vested interest or personal agenda, whatever it is, whatever's at the basis of it, or just this massive means of controlling women, and people standing up and saying, no, you're not going to do that. That's not okay, and trying to speak truth to power on that, and it's all falling on deaf ears, depending on who it is they're talking to, right? So that would be an example of Tiwaz and Rubius from Monday. That ultimately I think I got into. And again, it's the activist mentality of Tiwaz that's willing to stand up and speak truth to power. Well, today, instead of just Tiwaz and Rubius, we had Tiwaz and Caput Draconis. Now, Caput Draconis is one of the Draconi. You have Kata, which is the opposite. Here you have the head of the dragon, or the north node of the moon. Here you have the tail of the dragon and the south node of the moon. So whereas the south node of the moon would be past experience or past life or karma influencing the present, with Caput, you're on the threshold of new beginnings. So it may be that what the conclusion I ultimately drew here, when I was first talking about this, was that if this is an extension of Monday's reading, then it could be that either you were already part of an activist group that was speaking truth to power at that time, or perhaps someone has taken notice because of the King of Wands here present in in the cards, in that part of the reading. It could be something like that. Someone's taken notice and wants you to join their group and join forces with them, and so that you're add your voice into what they're already doing. Maybe they recognize your leadership potential or something. And I say that because the overall numerology of today's reading is 1. And that's new beginnings, it's talent, it's leadership, it's innovation, it's all of that, you know. So let's go ahead and talk about the cards here, though. I don't have tea today, I have lemon water. With ice, because, you know, I gotta have ice. Anyway, we have the 9 of Wands here. And it was interesting. Monday we had a run on cups, which is a water element, and emotions and compassion and all of that. Change, motivation, movement. Here you have we have a run on wands for this reading with the 9 of Wands and the King of Wands, and then we have the 2 of Cups in the center. But here we have the 9, and 9. I don't see this so much in numerology, but more in witchcraft, about being 9 is a number of endings and completion. But I always say it. 9 is also about spirituality and generosity and all of that. But for me, at least in terms of this card, it's about the end of something. The battle is over. And or is it? I don't know. The look on the guy's face is like he's kind of looking around like, well, are you with me? Are you but we don't know if these are represent the energy that's behind him, that's in support of him, or if this is who he was battling with. It's like, are we really done? Is it really over? You see this dual line right here, which you'll see again here in the 2. You can see it right here. And it's a sense of separation of experience, okay? So in a sense, these could be the energies that he was battling against, okay? The fire element is the element that Wands represents, and so you're talking about willfulness, the expression of will in different forms in terms of new opportunity, creativity, spark of life, all of that, right? But it's essentially the element is about expression of will. And so again, we don't really know for certain in this case, is that the other will's expression of will he was battling against and now it's over, or what? But he's done it, and he stood out away from the crowd. Here you see him standing out away from the crowd. He stood out on his own and expressed himself and won. All right, at least it appears that way. But all we know for sure is that the battle is over. Something is ended here. The expression of will between him, the guy, and everyone behind him is now stopped. From there, healing can take place. Now here that's expressed in a card where you see the home on the hill, and here they are out away from it. Perhaps there was a difference of opinion between the 2 people. We'll just look at this as husband and wife. So the couple, maybe there was a problem, an issue that needs healing. And so they got away from the home. They got out of the element where that was happening. And now you see the man reaching and stepping toward the woman, with both hands are outstretched, though, with a cup in their hands. And so it's essentially the offer of peace and harmony and love and healing. 2 can also mean decisions, but it can also mean that. It can mean the balance between dark and light, with the woman representing the darker receptive presence and the man representing the active principle or presence and light. It's not a value judgment. It's not one is good and one is not. It's not that in this case, but it's receptive versus projective presence here. You could look at it that way if you were looking at yourself and maybe the battle within to figure out a balance there. But in this case, the healing has to do with something that's happened that he's had to speak truth to power to with Tiwaz. We're going to say that because of Tiwaz's presence here in the reading. And now, after that's over, the healing and the new direction is taking place. This is a decision that's been made to heal. The truce maybe is expressed this way. That's here. The uneasy truce is now given way to actual reciprocity and healing, and maybe a commitment to move forward together in harmony and love. And that would be on the threshold of that, right? With Caput Draconis, on the threshold of that type of a new beginning today. And then we have the king. And I said when I first did the reading that I might need to add a fourth card, but I don't know. But I don't think so. I think that either the King of Wands here, who is a wise and older man, he's a mentor. He can be cruel and bigoted if ill-dignified, but mostly, he's a wise counselor. He's knowledgeable. He's a warrior himself. He may be taking notice of what this man has done, standing up for others, standing up for a higher principle. Again, aligning with Tiwaz when they do it. So this could represent the Tiwaz energy in and of itself, but I don't think so, because I think that the way it, and you'll see this if you go to the blog Stepping Aside, my blog, the web address there is imsteppingaside.com. If you go there, you'll see a write-up of the reading that I do each day. Each on Mondays and Thursdays I'll post that, in addition to everything else I post on Sunday nights. Or, well, it's not night, it's early Sunday morning, in the midnight hour, we'll say, because that's when I publish it. But I guess, to me, it may represent, if this is indeed a continuation of Monday's reading, all right, with Tiwaz. The battle with Rubius is over, because we're on the threshold of new beginnings with Caput Draconis. But we still have that powerful Tiwaz energy, the willingness to stand up, the willingness to not lay down and take whatever's dished out, but to stand up for what you believe in, stand up for your ideals, stand up for other people, whatever it is, right? But it could be that some activist group has taken notice of you and what you did. And if so, if you're not already in that particular one, or maybe within it, the powers that be within it that seem to be the leadership voices within the group may say, we need to add this person to that. Right? And maybe you may be that person, where you now become involved with something greater than yourself, which the king could represent. And that's the new direction that you're taking with Caput Draconis. People realize, or it could be whoever the people are that you stood up for, if that's what happened on Monday, maybe now they're recognizing you for the leader that you are. And they're coming to you for guidance, and where do we go from here? What do we do now? And so it could be something as simple as that. But if not, the king just feels like, literally the way it's presented here. I'll bring these two up. You see how he's watching? He's watching. He's actually sitting there watching the whole thing unfold. So I have to wonder, either it's somebody that's sitting up and taking notice of what you did on Monday and that you're continuing to do now, but offering you something that is going to be more in line with what you did, and this talent you seem to have to stand up and speak truth to power with Tiwaz. And again, being able to then let go of the battle and move forward in healing and reciprocity, so that you can truly move forward together, right? Because sometimes in a situation like that, there's winners and there's losers, and hopefully the Rubius energy lost, and what's really true and needed and necessary and right for the people involved is gonna be what wins out. That compassion and love and integrity and dignity and honor are what actually wins, instead of self-motivation and service to self and arrogance and conning others at the expense of your own, at the expense of everyone else's needs and desires. It's like, only this person's going to win out. Well, and whoever that person's beholden to is going to win out. And whenever that happens, the group itself that's being oppressed will continue to be oppressed, and that will increase, right? And so that's kind of where I went on Monday with that reading. But again, here, you still have that same Tiwaz energy where you're standing up for other people, and you're speaking truth to power, and you're raising your voice on behalf of others. It's not just about yourself. It's about something that will benefit other people as well, even if they don't know you're doing that for them. It just happens, and suddenly things change, and people's lives get better. It's that sort of thing. But in the process, I think that again, either the king is aligning with the inner authority that you feel to do that. It could be that, or it just kind of feels like someone in authority is taking notice and wants you to maybe be part of their organization or their activist type of a situation where you're trying to effect positive change in your community or in the world or in the country or whatever it ends up being. I mean, this is election season, so you see a lot of that right now. And you have a lot of different activist groups that are social justice type of activist groups. And to me, Tiwaz is the perfect social justice activist rune. And doing that on behalf of other people is totally in alignment with something like that. So it could be, again, that you could be offered a position within that, or you rise to a position in a group you're already part of. Where you're more of a leader and a more of a vocal voice that others are listening to, because you put all of it together in a very easy to understand message that is very clear and based on higher ideals. And so I think it's interesting, sometimes the readings dovetail together, and they kind of do here. And fortunately, it's the positive side of Mondays that is dovetailing with today's. And again, Tiwaz is such a powerful rune. There just seems to be so much oppression right now coming down the pike, essentially, specifically against women, which cannot happen. It just cannot happen. We can never go back to that, where the women didn't have the right to vote, or women didn't have a right to buy property on their own. I know when my parents were divorced, they got divorced. I graduated as a junior from high school. I did high school in 3 years and went on to college. And that was in 74. I was supposed to graduate in 75, but I did it in 3 years. And so I graduated in 74. That year, I believe, was the year that women who were getting divorced could start building their own credit in their own name, and they could then buy a home in their own name. My mother did that. She had always worked and pretty much, and she had the money to do this, and she could make the house payments, but it's like, well, am I going to be able to? She found somebody that my parents had done business with, just a business, was a local furniture store, and they agreed. The owner said, yeah, I'll co-sign, or give her a letter or something of recommendation, or to say she has good credit with them or some kind of thing, so that she could get a Visa card. She'd never had a Visa card in her own name. It was always in my father's name. And all of that, would be in even though her name was on the house, it didn't matter because she was a woman. And these days, you can't even imagine such a thing, right? But I was 16 years old, and that's the year I believe that it changed. And so she was able to buy a home, and in her own name, and she had credit in her own name. It was all that she had always worked for. Being the good employee, being being the responsible parent, all of the things that she was, right? She was now able to integrate with the world on that same level as a man could, right? And again, I mean, younger people now listening to this may say, oh, that's not possible. Do Google it. It's true. That's when it happened. And it corresponded at the time my parents got divorced. And so she benefited from that. But if that store that they had done business with, if they hadn't, said, here, you have credit with us and it's in your name, and you have a good credit history and all of that to get that Visa card, those were the two pivotal things, right? And so right now we're in this situation where a lot is happening to women in states. The Supreme Court doing what they did to Roe v. Wade. uh, uh, I mean, even down to getting into deciding IVF isn't okay, or dealing with an ectopic pregnancy is, oh, it can be reimplanted. No, it can't. And so you're not supposed to have essentially what amounts to a DNC or an abortion. Well, if the fetus dies within the body, if you don't get it out of there, the mother could die. And that's in question now in some states where doctors are afraid to do anything for the woman. And so they literally have to be bleeding out before they can do anything. And then they're afraid to do anything. They're afraid they're going to be arrested. Or you see what I'm saying? It's just gotten nuts. And it's like we have returned to such a draconian place in the world that we need this Tiwaz energy. We need people to stand up, speak truth to power, and say no more. Enough is enough. We are not going back to what happened to women in the past. Because it doesn't just affect the women, it affects children, it affects everybody. And it infects society in a way that cannot be anymore. And so I think that we can see how standing up and speaking truth to power can bring about great things with this particular reading, to return to harmony and justice and fairness and balance with one another. But we can't stop speaking up. There has to be people that will do this in a way where others will listen and hear. The damage that will be done to society if this onslaught against women continues. You see, the damage. Essentially what we're seeing is the last vestiges of patriarchy trying to control everything. But we know that can't be. We have to move into a more balanced and harmonious type of experience where all voices are considered, not just the male population, and certainly not just the male billionaire population, right? Because all of this is funneling down from people that are actually funding all of this nonsense, and all this harm that's being done to women. It's not okay. And so I do think that this is an extension of Monday's reading. It's just that it's the next step in that process. Once the darkness, the evil influence is quashed. Now where do we go? We need to keep building, and rebuilding what we have. What was there and now has been somehow manipulated out of there. Just that one thing, that one decision of the Supreme Court regarding Roe v. Wade, returning all of it to the states. Well, that's lovely, isn't it? But what if you're in a state that doesn't regard women as anything of value other than somebody that's of breeding stock, right? And there to service their husband, right? That's all you're there to do. You're like some slave that has to do for everybody else, but you need something. Oh, no, you don't need anything. All you need is this, right? And that should be enough for you. It's like, no. When does it start? When does it become that they're getting into marriages? Marriage equality. They're getting into. They're going to end up probably saying that oh well, you can't have a mixed marriage, of different races. You can't have that either, right? It all has to be this other, that they're talking about. We go backwards when we do that, right? And I just think it's so interesting that both readings here this week are involving the Tiwaz rune and the Tiwaz energy that allows us and enables us to, and invokes within us the higher ideals and the higher principles to then speak truth to power and demand better than what they're giving us right now. You see, we shouldn't have to wait to be given anything. It is ours by our birthright. It is ours. And yet they want to take it away from us in some religious weird thing that they're going to define how the rest of the country is going to live. A small minority of people. No, that can't be. We cannot go back to that nonsense, because it was nonsense. It was all about male domination, and all at the expense of women and children. So uh, I think the way out of it is to survive all of it, and to speak truth to power, and demand better, and demand our rightful place in this world, in this society, in this country, in our communities, our rightful place, equal place. You see, not something that is male dominated and patriarchy dominated and all of that, where women have no power, no rights, no nothing. We cannot return to that. We just cannot. It just was. And by talking about my mother's situation in 74, it's just saying, look, it wasn't that long ago that this was what was happening. It just wasn't. And in some households, it's never stopped, you see. But it's extraordinarily destructive. An imbalance like that, you can't progress in the world. You only go backwards. And that's what one faction of the country, one small faction of the country, and I think also in the world, is trying to do to people. And it just can't happen. But again, it takes invoking the Tiwas within, the spiritual warrior within, to say no and to stand firm. It's just not going to happen. On Mondays, it turned out that, I think I ultimately said the way we do this is we vote in November for candidates that don't believe this way, that don't believe in patriarchy, that believe in equality, that believe in elevating everybody in society to a better place, to not look at women as if they're just useful chattel, as actual equal partners, and like we are. Women aren't asking for any more than that. They're not asking to be the dominant voice in the world. We're asking for and demanding our equality. That's what we want. That's what we need. That's what has to happen. I don't know how a world progresses when there is an imbalance that's caused by patriarchy. I don't know how you do that. It's all done, because if you do, it's all done at the expense of the majority, really. And so that just a small number of billionaires win and win control of the world. It can't be that way. So knock the feet out from under the women, give them no worth, no values, like, in order to keep the men in charge, basically. You see, that's what's happening here. And they're mixing it with a certain religious perspective that is not held by most religious people. And so, in other words, it's whose God wins, whose religion wins. It's like, no, it can't be that way. Especially not in this country, where we're supposed to be tolerant of that, and and accepting of the fact that this is a diverse nation, right? The diversity of everything. Of culture, of religion, of perspective, of the freedom to not have religion if you don't want that. This is supposed to be a free place where ideas are expressed, and respect is given, and all of that. And yet here we are in this weird place where a small number of people, male-dominated people, want to take over and oppress everybody into back to where we were in the Dark Ages. So again, we're in this battle for they say, the president says, the battle for the soul of our nation. Well, it's not just that. This is about good and evil. What's going to win? Are we finally just going to get down to moving together in one direction to elevate everything and to make things better? Isn't that what we want? Most people do. But then you have this small group of people that want to control and have an authoritarian, essentially authoritarian experience in the country, right? Where the authoritarians are the ones in control. The dictator is the one in control. And when that happens, this wonderful experiment of the United States is over. It's over. Until we rise up against it, I guess. I don't know. But other than that, it's over. And all the civil rights we had, gone. All the environmental protections for the planet, gone. because it doesn't serve the billionaire class. It doesn't serve the oligarchs in the world. It doesn't serve those ones in our country, and those in other countries that want to take over this country. So I think with Tiwaz, it's sending the message that we have the power within us to stand up against the dark forces that seem to want to circle through and take over, and we can't let them. So that's it. I don't know. Interesting reading for both Monday and Thursday, though. Anyhow, thanks for watching. Click subscribe if you haven't yet. And like, oh no, I don't want to hear any of that stuff. I don't generally interject politics into what I do here, but I don't know. Given the runes on Monday, I didn't really feel like I had a choice, in the matter. Because I do think it's that powerful of an energy that we're trying to deal with now. And we can't just sit back and do nothing. Even if all we do is vote in November, that's a very powerful thing to do. So anyhow, have a good weekend. And come back again on Monday for another edition of As Above, So Below. Be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.